Hi, this is Mark from Tryb Solo. Today I have a huge game, Euthia Torment of Resurrection, a game sent to me by Steamforged Games, and thanks for sending it for review. This is a huge game. Making a video about it took me some time because it's quite big and maybe not that complex, but there's a lot of content in it. This is a game published by Dia Games, and then during the second Kickstarter, Steamforged Games helped to publish the second, you can say, edition of this game, this one that you can see here. This game will be coming to Kickstarter on May 2nd. I will leave a link in the description of this video. There will be a reprint and a brand new expansion called Cruel Frost, ice theme in this new expansion. But today I would like to talk to you about the base game, the core game that you can see here, the one that you will be able to probably, I think so, order during the new Kickstarter, the base game, or together with some expansions. Euthia Torment of Resurrection is a fantasy, you can say adventure, RPG, strategy games, where you will play as a hero or heroes, depending if you play it solo or cooperatively or competitively, because there are many ways to play this game. You will be a hero, you will level up, you will find new equipment, gain new items, you will do different quests, fight with monsters, and try to complete one of the scenarios that are included here. There are a lot of scenarios. Sometimes you will fight with a dragon, sometimes with elementals. Some scenarios are competitive, where you will compete with other players, and some are cooperative. They all can be played solo. Let me show you or tell you how the game plays. I will show you how the game looks like. I will tell you more or less about the rules of the game and the flow of the game, and then I will tell you my pros and cons of Euthia, the core game. So this is Euthia, Torment of Resurrection. I wasn't sure how to make this part of this video, because this is a huge game, as you can already see. This is not a beginning of any scenario, but a scenario during the playthrough. But you can already see that there are a lot of elements, a lot of components, a lot of different boards and tiles and everything. So instead of trying to explain you all the rules, I will rather try to tell you what is the flow of the game, what are you doing in this game, how your hero looks like, what are the actions you can take, and tell you a little about the combat, etc. And not try to explain every single rule. With the game, you get, at least with the second printing that I have, you get this help sheet, and this is really helpful because you have all the symbols and icons. They are not very complex. When you play the game, you don't have to check most of them, but they are all here. And you have a summary of basic player turn, like combat, trade rules, basic things are explained here. So if you know how to play the game and you have forgotten some minor elements, you can check them on this help sheet. Before you start the game, and even before you set up anything on the table, you have to choose a scenario. There are 11 scenarios in this rulebook, and they have different difficulty, they have different setup, sometimes even different rules and goals. Some of them are competitive, some are semi-cooperative, some are fully cooperative. So there are different scenarios. You can play all of them solo. Of course, there are some scenarios that when you choose to play them solo, they become like a beat your own score type of scenarios, because, for example, this scenario I'm playing right now, this is a scenario where I have to complete as many quests as I can during 10 rounds of the game. And at the end of the game, I will have to calculate my score. And if you play a multiplayer game, you will compare your final score with other players. And the player with most points wins the game. If you play solo, you can, just calculate the score and write it down somewhere. But you will still have fun during the game by fighting monsters and, gaining loot and leveling up your character. But there are scenarios here with a specific goal that you have to do. Like you have to kill some specific type of monster, or defeat a dragon, or I don't know, save a golem, seal an abyss, or stuff like this. So this type of scenarios are better for a solo gamer, because they give you a specific goal that you have to accomplish in order to win the game. So choosing a scenario is very important. The scenario tells you what type of sometimes elite monsters you have to choose. There are sometimes specific tiles and tokens and miniatures, because right now this is my hero that I'm playing, Tathiri. But in the game, in the box, you have some dragons and monsters and golems that you will use in specific scenario. There are also a lot of terrain tiles in this game. They are numbered from 1 to 5. In this scenario, I'm only using the tiles from 1 to 4. All the 1 tiles are already on the table. And the scenario tells you exactly what type of tiles you have to use. There are a lot of them in the box. So, each time you play the game, the map will look different, because some of the tiles are fixed for a scenario, some are randomized, and you lay them out on the table also randomly, because anytime you go to a border of the map, you have to reveal a new tile, so the map will look different each time you play the game. So the scenario tells you how to set up everything, what type of monsters to use. There are 3 type of monsters. Apart from regular monsters, there are some elite monsters that you can hunt. They are not used in every game. We have 4 elemental cards, because in this game you have these elementals. They affect the gameplay, because each of them, there are 4 types of them. We have 2, and there is also a fire and water elemental as well. In some of the scenarios, they basically stand on the map and you can interact with them, but usually they affect the surrounding spaces on the map. You can also interact with them to gain some bonuses and benefits. You have your hero board. I will not lift this one because I have already some tokens here, but this is another hero board where you have space for different equipment, different skills. Each hero has got a completely different set of, let me show you, of items and weapons and spells and magic, depending on the character. You will be able to unlock them. And they are numbered, like right now at this point I have reputation 6, and if I will raise my reputation, I will be able to use additional tiles and abilities of my hero, but some of them are already here. I have, for example, Ice Whip. This is like a weapon, and I have this Frost Wand that allows me to lower the result of a monster roll during combat. Different skills. Apart from the skills that are specific for a hero, you have 6 slots here. This character has got, for example, 2 slots already unlocked, but you can unlock remaining skills by spending essence or by paying money. And here you have space for different equipment, like a helmet and gloves and shoes and pendants and rings and stuff like this. And here's your backpack. You can always carry 3 additional things, like weapon or some gems or treasure that you find. Even when you defeat a monster, you can take this defeated monster, put it in your backpack, because sometimes during quests you will be required to kill a specific monster and bring it back to a specific location on the board. Here is space for guard tokens. This is a strange name. Guard tokens are basically tokens that you can use during combat or during other rolls to modify your dice roll, because in this game you will use dice to perform different skill checks, ability checks, and during combat, and these guard tokens will help you to modify the results. You start the game with 4 of them, and here is spot for different gems and essence. There are a lot of gems and a lot of essence that you can acquire during the game, either by interacting with elementals or by mining. There are different mines in the game, and you can find different gems in the mines. a lot to talk about in this game. So let's not go to too many details. Basically, you have your character board. It starts with some basic equipment. Usually you start with some healing potions, for example, in this scenario, and you can start playing the game. This board here, this is a board where you will track rounds. This is the round tracker. Each scenario gives you a specific number of rounds in which you have to finish the scenario. And here you can track the reputation of your character. The higher reputation, the more points you will score at the end of the game, but also raising your reputation will help you to uncover more powerful and more interesting skills and abilities of your hero. Here we have market. We have different type of like trade places, because we have merchants, we have alchemists, and we have dragon slayer towers. If you find one of these locations somewhere on the board, for example, here we have alchemist. If I go here, I can buy the items from the alchemist building, or I can buy items from a merchant, or here I'm missing one item that I have bought earlier. Or here is the Dragon Slayer tower, where I can buy even better equipment. If I choose to buy an equipment, I will place it on my board, and the equipment that I buy will allow me to raise my skills, my health. Sometimes some items, they have places to place the gems that you can find in the game. If you place a gem on an item, the item will gain some even more powerful abilities. And here is the board. You start usually with only one tile, and anytime you go to a spot where there are no other tiles around, you have to reveal new tiles. And usually you start with tiles number 1, then number 2, and number 3, and number 4. The higher number of terrain tiles, the more powerful monsters and enemies are waiting for you. This is your hero, and you will use this miniature to move around the board. You have a lot of tokens in color of your character. Here are some tokens with a golem symbol that you use on the board if you interact with a golem. Here are mining tokens that you can use if you go to a mine and you use a mine. You can only go to a mine once, each mine once in the game, so you mark that this mine was already visited by you. Here are like trade tokens that you can use on trade location if you manage to kill the monsters that are waiting. For example, here is monster icon. The monster is here, and in order to use the alchemist, you have to defeat the monster. If you are the first player who defeats the monster, you will place this token, and it means that you have liberated this alchemist, and other players, they will have to pay money to you if they want to use it. All the different, and here are just regular hero tokens that you will use in many different situations. Basically everything that you will place on the map when you interact with different places and elementals and monsters and I know, mines and treasure spots. Each of the item that you put, each of the tokens that you put on the map will score you some points at the end of the game. So the more interaction you do on the map, the better score you will have when the game ends. What else do we have here? For example, here we have mountains, and you can go to mountains to dig for some cool gems. Here is a treasure spot. If you go here, you can use your action to find and search for a treasure. Only one player can search a treasure spot in the whole game, and if you want to do it, you will then draw a tile from a corresponding stack. Everything in this game is done with tiles. Basically, cards are mostly used in combat. Apart from this, everything is like a cardboard tile that you that you will use. So you can visit mountains, as I said, and you can go to different locations. Sometimes on a tile, let me show you some tiles, you will have, okay, this for example means that this is a place where you will place a golem, an elemental. Here for example this will be earth golem, and he will stand here and he will affect all the tiles around him. Sometimes you have, for example, places like this, and this means this is an encounter spot. If you reveal a tile with encounter, you will have to prepare a special encounter, you could say, deck. Each type of encounters, here are some used in this scenario, but there are many more cards like this. Here are different quests that you can finish by going to the specific encounter spot. Here, for example, is I think this is blacksmith. When you reveal an encounter, you will reveal a specific number of cards depending on player count. In a solo game, you will shuffle the cards, remove 4 of them, and the remaining 3 are the quests you can take. From these 3 cards, you will reveal 2, and these are the quests that you can do. If you manage, for example, to bring this type of gem to the blacksmith, the blacksmith will give you some type of reward. So doing quests is another thing you can do in this game. You can of course fight with different monsters. Monsters are depicted like this. If you have 2 swords, this means this is the medium level monster. 1 sword, this is the easiest monster. 3 swords mean this is the most difficult elite monster. And the thing in this game is that if you move to a space with a monster, you have to fight it. Basically, to perform most actions, you have to use these 3 tokens. Each player has got this token. These tokens are divided, and the top part shows movement points that you can use if you choose to spend this token on movement. The bottom part shows which action you can choose, each action you can do if you choose to spend this token for this action. So each of these 3 tokens can be used either for movement, and you will gain as many movement points as shown here, or for the bottom action. And basically you can fight with a monster, you can trade with a merchant or an alchemist, or you can dig and search for gems in a mine. The other actions, like interacting with a golem or fulfilling a quest or searching for a treasure, are free actions and you don't have to spend any items to do them. So for example, if you want to move, you can discard this token. You will get this token back at the start of next round, and you can move by 3 points. The cool thing in this game is that you can move and then you can do something else and then continue your movement. So for example, if this token gives you 3 movement points, you could move by 1 space on the map. Then you can, for example, search for a treasure, and then you can spend the 2 remaining points on moving even further. So you don't have to spend all the movement before doing another action. If you want to go to a spot on the map where there is a monster which was undefeated, you need to have this combat token undiscarded on your player board. If you don't have this token, for example, if you have used this token on movement, you cannot go to a place where you have a monster. As I said, some of the actions are free, so you don't need any tokens. And of course, by leveling up your character, you will be able to get items or abilities that will grant you additional actions. For example, my sorceress, she's got this Syrian Walk ability. If I add this ability to my board, I can tap it, rotate it to gain 2 movement points. So for example, this ability gives me 2 movement points for free each round of the game. So the more powerful your character, the more options you have. But you start the game with these 3 tokens. At the end of the round, if you don't spend all of them, you can save 1 for the next round. So for example, the next round you will have 4 tokens. The most complex thing in this game is basically combat, because everything else apart from Apart from the fact that there are a lot of rules, because you have different items and, you know, essence and golems and spells, abilities, you can trade, walk, dig in a mine. Everything is quite intuitive, and by reading the rulebook you will remember most of the things. By the way, rulebook is very well written, and everything is really well explained. But during a combat you will fight with monsters. As I said, you have different types of monsters with different difficulty level, and this is the backside of the deck, and here it tells you here are different monsters. What can you expect? This is the number of life points the monster can have. This is the number of wounds the monster can deal in one attack, and this is the reward you will get by defeating this monster if you are in this range of your reputation. If your reputation is higher, you won't get any bonus for killing this type of monsters. You will have to fight with more powerful monsters. So this is cool mechanic that you cannot fight with the basic monsters for the whole game. If you want to gain a reward, you need to find better monsters when your character is more leveled up. So when you fight a monster, you will reveal the top card, and this card tells you what is this. Here are the life points of the monster, here are the combat cards the monster will get. You have silver and gold combat cards. Here are the chaos tokens the monster can get, and chaos tokens are used to play the combat cards. And these are the guard tokens, the same tokens that you can use to, reroll your combat dice. The monsters can use them as well. And here are the different attacks the monster can deal. If the monster rolls the result from 2 to 9, the monster will deal 2 damage, and over 10 and higher it will deal 3 damage. Of course, these are the basic monsters, and the more difficult monsters, the more advanced stats they have, more life points, more wounds they deal and everything. But this is basically a monster card. And now this is the main difference between the solo mode and between the multiplayer mode. Because in the multiplayer game, other players, they will use the combat cards and dice, and they will fight as a monster against you. The silver cards are the weaker combat cards, and the gold cards are the more powerful combat cards. You as a player will be able to gain those cards, and then when you have a chance to fight as the monster against other player, you will be able to use your silver and gold cards that you gained during the game. If as a monster you defeat other player, you will score some additional points at the end of the game. So this is fun. If you are playing with other players, even if it's not their turn, they have a chance to become monsters and fight with you. This is in a multiplayer game. In a solo game it works differently. You have the same monster cards just like in a multiplayer game, but there's a special deck of combat cards, or I don't remember how they are called, but these are the special cards that you will use. And these cards, they simulate the actions that are taken by the monster. Normally in a multiplayer game, other players will roll the dice. Here you will reveal, when it's monster turn, you will reveal this card, and it will tell you what dice roll the monster has. You can set the dice like this. So this card tells me that the monster rolled 8, and here it shows you if the monster will try to use the silver or gold cards. It shows you if the monster will try to use guard tokens to perform different things. If there are chaos tokens shown on the dice card, and the monster has got chaos tokens in its monster area, remember that when you revealed the monster, it told you how many chaos tokens the monster gets. The monster will try to play the gold and silver card it's got in its possession. The silver and gold cards, they deal additional damage, they do additional effects, they will grant the monster higher roll results, the monster will steal some or destroy some tokens from you, so they are very dangerous. Of course, if the monster doesn't have any silver gold cards or doesn't have any chaos token, the monster cannot use any silver or gold cards. And then you will calculate the damage of the monster, and the monster will deal damage to you. Of course, if some of the gold and silver cards modify the damage, you will have to count them. After the monster attack, now it's your hero turn and you can attack. Basically the combat is more advanced, but I don't want to go into too many details, because at the start of the combat, first you can try to use some distance weapon. If you have them, you have some weapons that can deal damage from a distance. First strike weapons, you can try to use them to deal some damage to the monster. Then the normal combat begins. First you can try to heal yourself, then is the monster attack phase, then you can try to heal yourself again, and then is your attack phase. In your attack phase, you will roll the dice that you have. Okay, so here are my dice. I will roll the dice, I will choose a weapon, and I have to see how much damage I can deal to a monster depending on the result of my roll. I can use the guard token that I told you about earlier. Each guard token adds 2 to your roll result and forces you to reroll one of the dice. So if I have a dice with a low result, I can reroll it with this guard token, and then I will deal damage to the monster. Then again, if the monster is not killed, I will reveal another card from this deck. I will do some additional attacks, then I can again heal myself, then I can deal damage to the monster. And you cannot escape from a combat. The combat ends either if you are defeated or the monster is defeated. If you are defeated, it's not the end of the world, because you will be transported back to the church. The name of the game is Torment of Resurrection, and you will be resurrected. You will lose some points at the end of the game for losing the combat, but basically you will go to the church, you will reset your health, you will regain some of the guard tokens, and you will be able to continue your turn. And of course you will be transported back to the church, which can be annoying, because if you wanted to go to a completely different part of the map, you will have to go back there and spend your movement points. But luckily on the map there are some portals, and the portals allow you to fast travel on the map. So combat is fun. You can gain some cool loot from combat. If you are defeated, you will lose points at the end of the game, and you will lose part of your progress on the map, because sometimes you will have to go back to the place where you were if you want to, but it's not the end of the game. And this is the flow of the game. As I said, there are scenarios that just want you to fight specific type of monsters or do some quests. There are scenarios that give you a specific goal that you have to accomplish. In some of the scenarios you can fight with other players. Not really fight, I mean in combat, but you will compete with other players and try to score more points than they. In the cooperative scenarios, you all will work together. There are some rules in the rulebook that allow you to play all the scenarios solo or cooperatively, so no worries if you don't like compete with other players. You can play all the scenarios cooperatively. Just some scenarios will not have a specific end of the game, you know, objective that allow you to win or lose the game. And this is Euthia, Torment of Resurrection, a huge game. I know that I didn't explain all the rules and all the mechanics in the game, but I hope that you, after my video, you will know how the game plays more or less. This is just the base game, and this is not everything that you get in the game box. The map will get bigger for sure during the scenario. This is just the beginning of a scenario. If I add all the other tiles, I will have a huge map where I will be able to walk around different scenarios, different tokens, different cards and enemies. So that's it. Let me tell you what I think about Euthia, what are the pros and cons of this game. Now you know how the game plays, what's the flow of the game, how you play it, what the game is about. So let me tell you about the pros and cons. Pros. There are a lot of rules in the game, but the rules of the game are surprisingly intuitive. When I have set up the game for the first time on the table and I have seen all the tokens and items and cards and everything, it took the whole table to set up the game. I was really scared that the game will be very complex, but it's quite intuitive, and the only, to be honest, very kind of advanced thing in this game is combat, but it's really well explained. The rulebook it's great. It tells you how to play the game. You have an appendix that explains all the cards and tokens and everything. So learning this game is very smooth, and after a few rounds of the game, you can really play it without the rulebook, with just the reference sheet that is included with this game. I like that this game is a kind of open world RPG, you can say, because there is no fixed map, and you create this map. You create the tile stack according to the scenario, but during the game you will place the tiles randomly when you discover new areas of the game. So each time you play the game will look different, and you have a lot of freedom in this game because you have different quests and monsters and buildings and mines and different locations that give you different tasks that you can do to gain rewards or treasures or money. So it's really, really nice. It's not a campaign game, it's not it is a scenario-based game, but even if you have some goals in a scenario, you have a lot of freedom how to achieve them. So another pro, a lot of scenarios in this game, and they are very replayable. Each scenario gives you a goal, and sometimes there are some minor rules changes to the core rules in a specific scenario, but you can play them many times. You have a lot of everything in this game. You have a fixed stack of items, of treasures, of things you can discover. There are a lot of monsters, and they are divided into different difficulty levels. So even if you play the same scenario over and over again, you could play it many times without getting bored. This game is not really story-driven game, so it's more about the gameplay and mechanics and leveling up and fighting monsters and stuff like this. So the scenarios are very replayable. You have over 10 of the scenarios in the base game. The heroes in the game are asymmetrical. Each hero plays differently with different set of skills and items and abilities. So it's fun. Each time you play the game, you can choose different hero, and you will have a different feeling of the game. You have, of course, the typical, fantasy heroes, like you have sorcerers and dwarves, and you have warriors. But each character feels not completely different, but has a different skills, different abilities, and different even starting items. So it's quite nice. The game plays solo really well. Of course, there are some scenarios better suited for solo because, for example, the first scenario in the game where you hunt monsters, it's about scoring as many points as you can, and when you play this scenario with others, the player with most victory points wins the game. If you play solo, you can just beat your own score. But there are other scenarios where you have a goal that you have to achieve. Maybe sometimes you have to defeat specific type of monsters or do something in the game. So it plays solo very well. The only different things in solo compared to multiplayer is combat, because in solo mode you use a special deck of cards that simulates the behavior of monsters you fight with. But apart from that, there are not really many changes to the base rules when you play the game solo. The core box, as you can see, it's a huge core box, a huge game with a lot of content, a lot of replayability, and even though there are already some expansions, because there is one expansion from the previous Kickstarter, and a second expansion will be coming in the new Kickstarter campaign, even with just the core box, you have a lot of game in it. You don't feel that the expansions are like part of the base game that was removed from the game. No, the expansions are really additional content, and if you just get the core box, you will have a lot of fun, a lot of replayability in the game. I like the fact that this is not a campaign game. there's not a long campaign that you have to continue, and each time you play the game you will have to play with the same group of people and you will continue a long campaign. You have scenarios. Each time you play the game you will set up a scenario, you will play the game, you will start the game, you will finish the game. If you want to play it more, you can set up another scenario, or you can pack the game into the box. Next time you play the game you can play with other people, so no campaign. Each scenario is like a one-shot game that you can play. Really cool. I have a lot of fantasy scenario games, so it's nice to have a fantasy adventure RPG game that is not campaign based. And I also have to say that the game is quite friendly in terms of gameplay and rules. And what I mean, for example, you have movement, but you can split your movement to do other things. Like you can move, then you can do some quest or do an action, and then you can continue your movement. And this is really nice. I hate games that give some restrictions, like they tell you have 3 movement points, but you cannot, stop to do other things. You have to use all your movement points and then you can do another action. So I like that they give you some kind of flexibility. Also, for example, if you die in this game, you don't really die because you get resurrected. You lose some progress, but it's not the end of the game and you can continue playing. So, in my opinion, you can say that this game is quite friendly. What are the cons of this game? Not many cons, because I really like Euthia. I have to say it's a great game, and I'm already quite sure that this game will end up in my top 10 games for 2024. But of course, nothing is perfect and there are some cons. It's a table hog. It's a huge game and you need a huge table to play it, even if you play solo. Even for a solo game, you need a lot of space. The map gets big, you have huge hero board, you have the other board with all the market tiles and the scoring, you have a lot of cards and tokens and everything. It's a huge game. If you play with, I don't know, you can play it for 1 to 4 people. If you play with 4 people, you need a huge table to play it without the need to, putting some things on another table or on the floor or so. So it's a table hog. Another con of this game is that the core box doesn't have any way to organize the cardboard components. When you open the game and you punch everything out, you get 20, 30 zip bags and you have to store everything in them. So it takes a lot of time to set up the game, it takes a lot of time to put the game back in the box. Some kind of an organizer will be really necessary to play this game in a convenient way. I'm not sure if there are some organizers from other companies, but during the Kickstarter campaign, I think they offered some kind of a second box that helped organize everything. And the third con for me, not really a con, but for some people it may be. This is not a story-driven game and you have almost no story in this game. You have some introduction in the rulebook. Each scenario has got a short introduction, but basically there is no story in the cards, on the tokens. There is no storybook with some, fun stories. This game is basically a game where you play a character, you level up, you find loot, find equipment and cool weapons, and you fight with different monsters. You do different quests, but without storytelling. You have to create the story for this game in your head. So if you're looking for a story-driven game, this is definitely not a story-driven game. It's an adventure game, a fantasy game, but really without a story. This is a great game. I'm really happy that I had a chance to try it. I remember Euthia from the first Kickstarter, from the second Kickstarter. I didn't back it back then. There are a lot of games I wasn't sure if it's a good game or not a good game. Now when I played it, it's a great game. If you know what you are getting, as I said, not a story-driven game, not a campaign game, rather fun game where you walk around, fight monsters, different things like in a fantasy adventure game. A lot of replayability in the core box. The game reminds me a little of, you could say, Mage Knight in terms of the look of the game, because you also walk around, you discover new tiles, you fight with monsters, and your goal is to level up and to gain new abilities and skill and make your character more powerful. But when Mage Knight was rather a Euro game where you had to optimize everything. This is more an adventure game where you have different scenarios, you have randomness in the game, you use dice to fight and use dice in combat. So sometimes you may be lucky, sometimes not. But I prefer this type of adventure, of fantasy games, than Mage Knight. So I can say that Euthia is the Mage Knight I always wanted Mage Knight to be. So this is fun. It also gives me a feeling of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the video game. Also, when I look at the board, at the tiles, at the locations that you discover and visit, it reminds me a little of Heroes of Might and Magic. If you played a lot of Heroes of Might and Magic on your PC, then you'll also find some similarities here. But if you like fantasy, if you like adventure game, if you have a huge table, you should definitely try this game or read more about this game, watch some other videos. And remember that Kickstarter is coming. This game is not available in retail from what I know. So the only way to get this game is during a crowdfunding campaign. Luckily, the new campaign is coming with expansions. But if you are interested in Euthia and you cannot afford the expansions, believe me, the base game is more than enough to play. But of course, the expansions look really interesting. I think the first one added some additional way to play the game solo. So I have to look at the new campaign and maybe I will get the expansion because I like to have a lot of content for my games. So as I said again, a link for the Kickstarter campaign will be in the description of this video. Click the like button if you like my video, subscribe to my channel, visit me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.